Well, gentlemen, cheers to your good health. This is just canned water mitigating that BPA found in those pesky plastic water bottles. Speaking of health, gentlemen, I wanted to discuss the role of the sweeter fruits, the sweeter options in our diet. Now, I have always professed to be a 80-20 person, meaning when it pertains to diet, when it pertains to nutrition, 80% of the time we are eating as we should. And I mean as we should in substitution for holistic health, right? For muscle function, for cognitive function, for longevity, for quality, for mitigating sickness, for boosting our immune system. And then 20% of the time, more indulgence, more mouth pleasure is a word or a phrase I frequently like to use to describe maybe some of the things that don't fit into that 80% category. Now, I'm sure this is a rule that you've heard of before. However, more recently, I've becoming increasingly more ambivalent towards this rule because I find myself behaving, so to speak, 6 days of the week. And on the 7th day of the week, everything just goes to pot. And then on Monday, I wake up with almost a indulgent food hangover. And it got me curious about the validity of this kind of rule and where or not there can be some wiggle room in that 80-20. So I started looking at my 20. And my Achilles heel, gentlemen, is chocolate. Fortunately, I never have a problem with crisp or chips, as the Americans and the Canadians would say. Sweets, I'm not a massive fan of very candy and things like that, as the Americans and the Canadians would say. But chocolate is my go-to. A warm brownie equally, and a warm cookie with some vanilla ice cream is very, very nice. Now, I started looking more specifically at chocolate, at cacao, and its role as something that could actually impact our health in relation to our masculine gene expression. And it so happens there is some merit to this idea. So, cacao and its role in masculine gene expression. There is evidence and good reasoning to make a compelling argument that the inclusion of raw coca, in your diet will prompt androgenic activity in a positive direction. Now, some of these will be more indirect than I would say direct, but there are some direct implications on some of the symptoms that synthesize things like free base testosterone. So stick around to the end. This is going to be very, very fascinating. And I'm going to convince you why something like 85% coca is something that you can not feel any shame in eating. So the initial obvious point, in my estimation, is the effect cacao has on your mood and stress levels, and therefore cortisol. You know, it's very, very curious when I start to strip away some of the gunk and clutter from my diet. When I eat something like cacao, I feel like I'm more sensitive towards the micronutrients in it. And it has almost like a high effect, like a euphoric effect. I'm interested to know if any of you have found any continuity in that idea. Like I've just had 2 squares of this Lindt Excellent 85% coca, and I'm riding a little bit of a high right now, and I feel tremendous. And there is some evidence on this point. So we talk about stress. So stress, of course, has an inverse relationship with testosterone. Some of the foundational blocks for building testosterone are also used for cortisol, meaning if we are stressed, your body is actually going to prioritize the foundational bricks that would otherwise be used for testosterone to build cortisol. And that's something that we just don't desire. Cacao also contains curious compounds such as PEA and theobromine, which show evidence in enhancing mood. Furthermore, cacao is an excellent source of magnesium. And of course, I'm sure you all know by now, or you should know, magnesium as this relaxation mineral. I take magnesium probably about an hour or 2 before I go to bed, and I noticed a significant impact in my mood, in my relaxed state, which allows me to transcend into sleep-related consciousness more easily. I know a lot of you may struggle with sleep, and recovery is going to be a crucial and paramount point to building testosterone and masculine gene expression. So magnesium should be stacked in your diet, and equally you can get more of it in the cacao. So let's talk about PEA. So PEA is an alkaloid, and it acts as a stimulant in the central nervous system of human beings. Individuals who eat cacao report 3 specific metrics, one of which I've talked about already. Mood elevation. So it's often called the love drug. You know, it's interesting the continuity of chocolate in, let's say, romantic snacks, like you hear about dark chocolate and strawberries, or on Valentine's Day, bringing your partner chocolate. And there's not a coincidence in that. It's this idea that it's leading to this kind of euphoric feeling and happiness and kind of warm, fuzzy feeling. It also acts as an antidepressant in this way, improving mood, mitigation of lower negative emotion, and almost like a stimulating kind of effect. Alertness, energy also begin to spike whenever we consume something like this. Dopamine and norepinephrine being what would you say, the precursor to this particular state. So here we have the raw cacao bean, if you didn't know what that looks like, on your screen here. So PEA, just going into some more nuance here, can enhance synaptic plasticity, which refers to the ability of synapses to strengthen and weaken over time in response to an activity. So there's this idea of cognitive enhancement indirectly being a benefit of increased cacao in the diet. Improved synaptic plasticity is also associated with better mood regulation, as we've established can alleviate depression. The inhibition of reuptake. So the inhibition of something like dopamine and norepinephrine, increasing their availability into the synaptic cleft, which is the space between the clefts. So you've got an electrical signal, chemical signal into the electrical signal. And between those 2 clefts, the chemicals that kind of sit there, is what happens when you experience something like dopamine or norepinephrine. So this prolonged action of these mood-enhancing neurotransmitters may lead to this kind of effect, which is why I am describing to you right now, after having a couple of squares of dark cacao, a definite increase in my mood right now, because more norepinephrine and dopamine is sitting and swimming in my synaptic cleft. Additionally, there's elements in the polyphenols and the nitric oxide production in cacao. So we'll go for the polyphenols first, though. This is a flavonoid, which does have some antioxidant properties. Some research suggests that antioxidants may help support overall health, including reproductive health. While there's limited evidence specifically linking polyphenols intake from cacao to testosterone levels, the antioxidant effects could potentially have some positive influence on hormonal balance. So again, I did preface at the start, guys, I am wary that, I don't want to shoehorn everything in being interrelated towards testosterone optimization. So I'm trying to be very particular with the word choice that I'm using here, and saying that the inclusion of this may indirectly affect your testosterone production. Something more directly, of course, maybe we can talk about ashwagandha, which has more hard-based evidence towards it. But I think when we're talking about the context of having some indulgence, because life, again, isn't all work and no play. There's a play element in enjoying the foods that we expose ourselves to. I think this is a really viable option that can also coincide with our fitness goals. Now, more directly, a study conducted on animals found that the flavonoids in cacao increased testosterone productions by stimulating the production of luteinizing hormone, which of course we know is responsible for testosterone synthesis in the testicles. There's this little cutout I've got here on the screen. So you've got stimulation in the hypothalamus, in the pituitary, GnRH, LH, FSH, and testes are being stimulated, the LH and the testes being stimulated to produce testosterone. And that's kind of the chain of logic, the chain of actions that flows when you intake something like cacao and the polyphenols and the effects on the LH. Nitric oxide production specifically suggests that the cacao consumption can raise this. And it's known as a vasodilating effect in the body, which could indirectly affect testosterone levels by improving blood flow to the testicles to support their function. However, of course, more research is needed to establish direct links between cacao and nitric oxide production. So, a lot of indirectness, I do get that, but I'm going to lean on what I prefaced earlier, of this being not just a viable option in terms of the pleasure that we may reap and seek in the foods that we're eating, but also to be congruent with the goals that we want. I did briefly just wanted to speak about theobromine, which is a naturally occurring alkaloid found in the cacao beans, which are the source of chocolate. It is also present in smaller amounts of tea leaves, the coca leaf, and certain other plant products. Chemically, very similar to caffeine, and we know that there is some evidence to suggest that caffeine can have an impact in our T levels. But specifically, the user benefits of theobromine is adenosine receptor antagonism. So similar to caffeine, theobromine blocks adenosine receptors, which can reduce the feelings of fatigue and increase alertness. There's also inhibitions of certain enzymes, which increase the cyclic AMP levels in the cells, which can enhance your neurotransmitter release and improve overall mood. And again, another nod to the euphoria aspect of upregulating mood and therefore minimizing cortisol response. While not as potent as caffeine, theobromine's stimulant properties can help alleviate some symptoms of negative emotion, particularly apathy and lethargy. There's more nuance and credence to the notion that cognitive functions and cardiovascular vasodilation's effect will be in combination with theobromine. So gentlemen, I just wanted to share with you kind of the options that you have. You want to go as high percent cacao as possible. The darker, the better. That's going to be a soundbite. I personally use 85%. One of the best metrics I've found is by going to the ingredients list at the back. And you need to remember that ingredients are listed in terms of heaviest weight first and least weight last. So if you are picking up a marketed brand of dark chocolate, remember they can say whatever they want at the front. They can say this is pure dark chocolate. Turn to the back first. And if the first ingredient is sugar, they are lying to you. The first ingredient should be coca. And the last one, maybe they've added a little bit of sugar or vanilla. So you can kind of see in mine, I'm just going to show you this at the back. I'm hoping you can kind of see here. But right on the top, you can see that the first ingredient in my chocolate bar here is coca mass. So the mass from the coca plant. And that is the best way in order to discern whether or not you are getting what you are paying for. Gentlemen, let me know what your experience is with dark chocolate, if you find this a valuable addition to your diet. And maybe if you don't, if there are other sweet alternatives that you feel meet your needs while also being congruent with your health goals. These aren't theories, these are facts. Speak soon.